Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm Shilpa Maniar, and I head the G-Tech Global Solutions team based in New York and chair the Indus Google Network. I'm thrilled to have with us today the founder and CEO of Live Tinted, Deepica Mutyala, who is also a fellow Texan, and she will be discussing with us her journey as a South Asian American beauty entrepreneur who is changing beauty standards and revolutionizing the beauty industry. Deepica is on a bold mission to champion multicultural beauty through her brand and products, community, conversation, and awareness. She's also a YouTuber who in 2015 had a video on a beauty hack to cover dark under-eye circles using a red lipstick that went viral, which now has over 10 million views. Deepica has been recognized by some of today's most prestigious publications for her achievements in the beauty space, including 2022's Time Magazine's Next Generation Leader, and other accolades such as Oprah Magazine and the New York Times. Her brand, Live Tinted, engages with several iconic national partners, including Barbie, Netflix's Never Have I Ever, and Phenomenal. Deepica is truly transforming the definition of beauty, and we are here today to talk about it. Welcome, Deepica Mutyala.
That was the best intro. Thank you.
We are so, you did all the work. We just had to read it. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
And, it's such a great timing because, in light of Diwali and in light of the season, I thought we'd start off with, being a fellow South Asian, what does Diwali mean to you and how do you celebrate it?
Well, that's why I have a full face of makeup on right now, because I'm getting ready for the Diwali event that starts today. This year is unique and really cool because I will be celebrating it many times, but on Monday, I'll be celebrating Diwali at the White House, which is pretty awesome.
That is incredible. We will have to follow your stories through YouTube and Instagram. I'm sure you're going to be posting about the experience.
Yes, for sure.
Can't wait.
How cool is that? How cool is that we can say that there's going to be Diwali at the White House? Like, what a time. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is an incredible milestone to be able to say that Diwali is well known, right? It's nationally known. It's not just something that can we take a day off from school? Are people going to be confused that it's not Christmas? Why are we receiving gifts? Or, all of the stereotypical responses to it, like for the president to acknowledge it as a holiday, I think is a big step. And it's really the community like you who've made it possible to have such investment at the national level. So, thank you to the work that you've done also to be involved in that.
We're out here trying. It's important.
Yeah, it's all about the hustle, right?
Oh, yes. Because last year we hosted the Diwali event. It was me and Nina Harris with Mindy Kaling. And it was such a beautiful moment to look around the table. It was like 16 people who are South Asian women who have done incredible things for the community, sitting around a table, just cheersing to us and our community. And to even just look around and say, look at us together, showing that like we all can do this together. And there doesn't need to just be one of us that makes it and wins and is tokenized. And it was really beautiful. And so since then, to see how much sort of connection and connectivity has formed within the South Asian community, it's just really beautiful to see.
It is. It truly is. And I think the next few weeks are going to be truly a celebration of the Festival of Lights and the light over evil. And hopefully it brings brightness and joy to everyone around us, not just the South Asians. So thank you again for the work. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey that got you to where you are today. And so for those of you who don't know, we said it earlier, Deepica's story really started with red lipstick, a vertical video frame, not a horizontal frame, but a vertical video frame in 2015 that went viral. Can you talk to us about, or take us back to the time when you were there at that point, when you were creating the video, like what was going on in your mind? Is that something that you wanted to do? What were you expecting?
Yeah, I think it started with me just seeing this world of beauty influencers rising. And I was working at a beauty company at the time. And I started to work on influencers and I was like, they're getting paid what to do what? And it was just fascinating to me that this was like the new wave of marketing. And what was even more fascinating to me was that there was nobody who looked like me doing it. And so there was this strong disconnect between an audience of, billions of people in the world and this new form of media that had like billions of dollars in ad revenue, and then the beauty industry that, you know, generates billions of dollars, and there was nobody connecting it. And I just found that to be such it was just interesting and an opportunity. And so, you know, I think for me, beauty has always been just like my passion and obsession. So it never felt like work to do something like starting a YouTube channel until it did. But in the beginning, it wasn't that, right? Like I just genuinely saw an opportunity and saw a disconnect in the space. And so I did it. It was a New Year's goal. So January 2015, I picked up my phone, like you said, vertically. It was like the production value was not there. But what's funny is now the production value doesn't matter as much with the TikToks of the world and things like that. But the vertical thing is in now. So I like to say I was ahead of my time. But yeah, at the time it was, I think what made it resonate so much was that I wasn't trying. I was just genuinely sharing a tip that I felt like solved a beauty concern in my life and I hadn't seen other people solve before.
And do you think that in that moment, or when you're like, okay, like this red lipstick hack's going to work, it's going to resonate with a lot of people like me, like how did your culture or upbringing play a role in that point in your life when you're like, I'm gonna try to take this risk, do this, have fun with it, and if something comes out of it, like great. Like what influences did you have in your culture that got you to that point?
Well, I think if I'm being honest, my upbringing, I will say, would have thought scared me from going for it, because I was raised by traditional immigrant parents from India whose, you know, standard of success in the world was to become a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer, or because you could be both, or all the above. So I think if anything, my upbringing wouldn't have encouraged me to do this, but I've always been a girl who was a little bit stubborn and wanted to do the things I was told to not. And so here I am kind of going for it. And, you know, I just remember my parents' definition of the American dream. It's just, they wanted me to be respected and seen as a leader in America. And to them, respect comes through education. And so I understand their reasoning for wanting to do something that was safe. Incredibly difficult and hard, by the way. Like, I feel like sometimes I talk about my journey as if like being a doctor and a lawyer and engineer is incredibly difficult and respectable. And I think it's amazing. My sister and brother-in-law are both doctors, and I applaud doctors so much. I just think for me, I wanted to build and pave a path that hadn't been done before. And I knew I was meant to do it. I just knew. I don't know how to explain it. It was like a gut feeling in me that was like, you have the capabilities and the skill set to build something and show people that they can do it too.
Yeah. And I was going to talk about this later, but I think we can get into it now. Is like, I think a lot of people today struggle with knowing their purpose, right? And knowing what are they meant to do. Because if you look at the audience today, at least at Google, a lot of us are traditionally engineers or have traditional educations, working a corporate job. And there's definitely innovation in that. But like what helped you identify your purpose and feel confident that you could take that risk?
I feel like I'm very lucky that since I was 16, I felt like this is what I wanted to do, you know? And I think and it's okay. I think there's a lot of people figuring it out later in life to say, you know, what does that even really mean? I think it's so inspiring, by the way, to see people start a company in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. Like one of my investors and mentors, Bobby Brown, she's doing her second company over, and it's, you know, already a multi-million-dollar business. And I think that that's really cool, because I am very lucky that I knew at a young age that this was my calling and what I was meant to do. But it's okay if you don't. And it's okay if you did become an engineer and then you decide at 55 that I want to go for my dream. Like, I just feel like we have one life to live on this earth. And why would you ever not live it in a way that brings you just the most joy in the world? I'm not saying it's easy. I understand and recognize that, you know, quitting your job and not knowing how to pay your bills and things like that is really scary. For me, I started my YouTube channel while I had a full-time job. And I think I think there really is something to the side hustle mentality and recognizing and getting some traction before you make the full-time jump, because it's very unrealistic to sit there and say, I could just quit my job and not know how I'm going to pay my bills for so many people.
Yeah, and I think that seeing, kind of the risk that you took, and obviously we're seeing the successful components, and we'll get into this journey a little bit later in the conversation about, there's obviously the struggles and the challenges, but I think it's admirable to see kind of where you are today. You're able to take those risks, take an unconventional path, and be at the place you are now in your life. And so, thank you for sharing a little bit more about the intent and the purpose. Switching back to your YouTube career and how you started off on YouTube, you have almost 350,000 subscribers. I think your collective social media following is close to 1 million. And you always share your story so authentically. We've heard you talk about depression and mental health issues in the past, even for you personally and just for the community. You talk about your family. You share so much. So, at what point do you feel like how are you able to be so vulnerable so publicly, and how do you set those boundaries where you're like, you know what, this might be a little bit too private, or this might be a little too personal? Like, what does the boundary look like for you?
I feel like until this point, I didn't really have boundaries. And I don't know if that was a good or bad thing, but it's just like factually true. I did talk about mental health. I shared my egg freezing journey. I shared my nephew's first birthday. I still do all those things because I think it's important for people out there to see more people, men particularly, but women also, especially women leaders, be vulnerable. I think there's not enough people out there showcasing that you can be a multifaceted woman and be a strong businesswoman and be bold and fearless, but also vulnerable and have both pieces to you.
Yeah.
And I had insecurities about that in the beginning because it was like I hadn't made it. Like we were talking about Payal Kadakia, who founded ClassPass earlier. And, I think so much of the standard of making it is building that billion-dollar company and what she has done. And I think her and I have a lot of these conversations. I'm very lucky to have mentors in my life who have gone through it to remind me that your life doesn't magically change when you create a company and build it to that scale and size. You don't just wake up happier. And I think that really helped me understand that I have to enjoy this journey along the way. And part of me enjoying that journey is sharing and sharing the good and the bad, because I get caught up in the noise of social, making everything look so glamorous and easy. And I think you mentioned this earlier and you said, we'll talk about this, but that I think is so important to share. For every Time Magazine headline and New York Times thing that you see, there are many nights of exhaustion, self-doubt, and fear that go into it.
Yeah, and I think that, I commend you for putting yourself so authentically out there for people to hear the good, the bad, and kind of see the full picture. Is there a time where you've ever been uncomfortably nervous about something that you shared? And can we talk about the feeling you had when you shared it and the feeling you had after, and kind of what the conversation was post that post?
I feel like anything that relates to me in my life, I don't have any, like if it's only involving me and my business, I don't have fear or stress. And I feel like that's just part of who I am since the beginning. And it's connected with an audience for that reason. I think the fear and nerves come when it involves family members or other people in my life, because it's not fair for them to hear hate on the internet or mean comments. And the internet's a scary place. And I think through the years have gone by, I think I get a little more guarded about what I share, only because it's like a lot of noise to take in from the outside world. And I think it really started from a really positive audience. But then just through the years, as you grow an audience, of course, there's going to be some people that have negative things to share. And if there's anyone who comes for me, I have enough confidence in myself at this point in life to where it just rolls off my shoulders and I'm fine. If you come for my like mom or my nephew or somebody I love, I can't take it. And it really, really hurts me. So that's where I think I have a little bit more of a guard up. The only thing I think I've never really fully shared out there, and I've recorded videos and then never did post it, is about my dating life. And that's mainly because I think I don't have it figured out. And I feel like it's a piece of me that I need to hold close to me, because I I think that you got to at some point draw a boundary to cherish something for yourself. And, that might change down the road. But I think for me at this point, I think it's because I just don't have it figured out. It makes me nervous to get the opinions of others, to be honest.
And I honestly think that's a fair, and some of us work at YouTube, and we all engage with that platform. And so it's like, it's what you feel comfortable putting out there. And I think there's certain areas that you can keep private. Like, I think we have this feeling sometimes that we need to put 100% of ourselves out there for people to know the full story, but that's not necessarily the need. Like, sometimes it's a little intrusive, and I think it's fair for you to feel like you want to keep some things private. But I definitely wanted to understand and share with the audience kind of how you set your boundaries and how you set your expectations when you do create content for platforms like YouTube. You did mention your family, and I've been following you for years as well, and your pondus, or I think, do you say pondu? Is it
Pundu? Pundu means fruits. And so growing up, my mom's like pet name for me was Pundu. It's like calling, I'm like the apple of her eye kind of thing.
And so it's so endearing when you share those stories, and you feature your mom, you feature your dad and your sister and your nephew, and your sister in the stories. And so, what did they say when you started filming them? What was the experience like for them, and how much do they embrace it?
Well, I will say that I get it from my mama. She is a star and she is a leader. And growing up, I always saw her. She was a businesswoman. She's launched many businesses. Even in like the Indian community, she is a leader and like president of organizations and all the things. So she's very comfortable on camera. And so I realize now I totally get it from her. My sister and father are quite the opposite, but I think they themselves have become really comfortable with it too, because they love to see my success and they love to see me thrive. And they've seen how them just being themselves has helps me thrive and build a business around it. And I honestly think my dad is my favorite character or person in my social life, because he's so himself, and it's so like the nerves and the other side of him is just authentically him. And I think that's why it connects with people, because he will be, in his white tee, like doesn't care what he looks like and just out there. And I think I think that's what connects with people. We're seeing it more and more, right? Like with social media and from the YouTube days to the other social outlets and stuff, that like people just want to see you be really, really real, really real, to the point of like the honesty is like just in your face. And I feel like that's what I love about my family is they've been really cool with me just truly showing everything. Like when I talked about going through depression and anxiety and my egg freezing journey specifically, I just thought that my mom would be a little uncomfortable with me doing that. And she never flinched or said anything to me, which I think shows a lot about her character and her belief in her daughter, and just saying like, she knows what she's doing. I'm going to let her do her. Because that's not traditionally spoken about in society overall, let alone South Asian communities.
Yeah. And I think that was, I think, we need to get your family on this next time. So we need to get all the whole mom and dad, everybody on it. But, I think that sometimes what you just said is we might have a notion of what our parents might think of something. And we might be thinking like, oh, they might not accept us putting out the egg freezing journey or whatever that is. And she surprised you and she was actually supportive. So I think it was very brave and hopefully encourages other people to do the same.
I hope that that's what it does. I hope it actually shows you that our parents are more understanding, generally speaking, than I think we give them credit for. But it's the fear of having that convo that stops us from even discovering that. So I think I hope that by seeing me and just having that vulnerable conversation with my family, more people can kind of break down those walls of intergenerational traumas that have happened in their lives and have those open conversations, because it really can break barriers between relationships, between different generations.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Switching gears a little bit, I know we're here to talk about beauty. So, your journey was just so beautiful to get you to kind of where you are today, and being the founder of Live Tinted, and some of the things that your movements that you're working towards, which is like revolutionizing beauty. So wanted to start with like, how do you define beauty? What does beauty mean to you?
Well, I think the way I define beauty is that it shouldn't be defined by one person. I feel like people should be able to identify themselves and their standard of beauty as their own. And I think that's the walls I want to break down in a world where I grew up and you saw one specific standard of blonde hair, blue eyes beauty in the beauty industry, which again, like, I feel like part of what I want with Live Tinted is I'm not putting that down. I think blonde hair, blue eyes is beautiful too, but it's just one of those things that's like, we deserve representation. Everyone deserves representation. And so I think that's why even calling the brand Live Tinted was an intentional decision, because it's a mantra. We want people to live in their skin and embrace their tints of their skin. And we all have a tint to our skin. So the beauty industry should recognize that and only encourage people to live tinted.
Yeah. I love how you tie that back to the brand and the concept and kind of, I think you use live tinted as an adjective and noun, and I think it truly is a universal word. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, how do you think, I think you said, beauty's evolved because now it's multidimensional. People are seeing the colors. For you, for the mission of Live Tinted, like 5-10 years from now, where do you really want to see beauty? In what stage do you want to see beauty defined as?
I think that something I've experienced a lot is being tokenized and just being the kind of, now I'm the brown girl, that's South Asian woman who started her own beauty brand, which great. I'll take the headline for sure, because that didn't exist when I had a kid. So like, awesome. And I think it helps a lot of people out there go and start their own. But what I hope 5 to 10 years from now is that that's broken down and I'm just the beauty entrepreneur that's starting a company. And I don't need to be defined as the South Asian woman. And that's a nice headline right now because it's not normal to be that. And my hope is that it's just normalized and we all just can exist. And I don't need to be the brown girl brand, because again, I called this Live Tinted intentionally. I wanted us to finally be included in the beauty narrative as South Asian people, but I wanted the goal to be that we just exist in a much bigger brand that stands for something deeper. And so I hope that the future is just a little more, not a little more, it's just inclusive, period.
Yeah. And I think it'll be exciting to see brands like you who are accelerating the narrative around beauty to have, generations of kids to not have to think about colorism and not think about, even have this as a topic of conversation, because it should be so natural and organically into content and things we see around the world. So when we talked about Live Tinted, we talked about the brand and we talked about partnerships earlier, which is you did a massive partnership with Barbie, and Barbie signifies, it has a lot of controversial brands associated to it, right? Because as a child, at least when we were children, Barbie was one way and she looked one way. Although she had lots of different outfits, she always looked one way. And so what made you want to do a collaboration with Barbie? And what did you want the Barbie that actually is a Live Tinted Barbie, what did you want that to signify?
I think even when I first started Live Tinted, we intentionally didn't start it as a beauty product business because I wanted it to be this community and hub that connected people and hopefully, shifted culture and made an impact in the world. And I think everything we've done since then, including launching products, but beyond doing partnerships and events and collabs, have all been to continue to do that. Like, that excites me way more than just being a company that releases a lipstick and makes a profit on it and sells one day. But if we can do that while simultaneously making an impact for another generation of people growing up, that's exciting. And so, I think I talked to the team about it now, and it's like, we've moved slower than a lot of brands would, like with releasing products and moving into a retailer, because so much of my focus has been on, I want to do that Barbie partnership, because when I grew up, I didn't have a Barbie who looked like me. And what an impact that will have on a whole new wave of young people growing up today. Just to see that. And like you said, like, normalize it to where it's just like the norm. And so it was a really, really cool moment for me. And, when they first said it, they wanted it to be modeled off of me, because it was like Women's History Month or something. And I don't know, I felt like, I didn't want this brand to be about me. I wanted it to be about a collective of people It wasn't called Deep Beauty or Deepica Beauty for a reason. It was like, how can we do this connectivity? And so I didn't necessarily want it to be me. I wanted it to be almost like an Indian girl that embodied characteristics that I think we all can hopefully look up to and see and be inspired by. Which then through that exercise, I actually found some real pride in myself going through that exercise to say, Deepica, you should be proud of yourself and what you're doing in the world. And, I think as people, as women of color, it's really hard for us to be proud of ourselves and take credit for something. It's just our society tells us we're supposed to just do it and not like own it. And I think that through this exercise of building this Barbie, I found that I should be proud that it is a South Asian American, because there were some Barbies growing up that had saris on, which were really transformative and super cool.
But they had blonde hair, I think. Wasn't that the thing? Or they had
No, there were some that were Indian, I remember, but and again later years of growing up. But to me, what was important was that this was a Indian American doll. Like this was embodying what you and I grew up and but wished we saw. So she was an Indian American CEO who proudly represented her culture wearing jhumkas and bangles. But like, am I somebody who wears a bindi every single day? I personally am not. I'm proud of wearing bindis when I like to, like tonight for the Diwali event. But I wanted this to represent the like new age woman of like Indian women. And so I just feel proud of all those little details down to like making the eyes big, putting the hair to be a little textured, because that's who I am. And that's who so many friends in my life are. And I don't know, it was like just a really powerful exercise to go through in building this, because I didn't want it to be me, but going through the process of it, there were pieces of it that did embody myself. And I found joy and pride in the process.
And I love that. And I think that and we'll have to link it later, but I think that when we looked at the Barbie that you posted that you did a collaboration with, I think that it did embody such a Indian American spirit. And I think it's great to see partnerships like that coming through with such, with two really two brands that are transformative coming together. So, going, talking about Live Tinted, talking about your collaboration, talking about your mission, being a female founder, we all know is a tremendous effort. And how was that process like for you when you had this idea? So you had this viral video, you'd worked at big brands, you'd worked at startups, and now you're like, I want to start my own company. So what did the journey look like for you from idea to actually like launching your business? And then what was the journey to actually getting investors like for you?
That last part. Oof. I was working at a beauty brand and then a beauty company, and then my video went viral and I sort of fell into this world as becoming a beauty influencer. And then I always knew I was going to start this brand, and it was just a matter of when, not if. And then I was approached by a man who wanted to start a brand focused on brown girls. And he asked me if I wanted to do it with him. And after many conversations, he said, I'll give you 10% of the business to be the face and be the like ethos of the brand and all these things. And I can handle all the rest of it. And that's really when I had that kick in the butt moment of like, if I don't do this, somebody else is. And he happens to be a Caucasian man. And that just really didn't settle well with me, just because I never dreamt of being a beauty influencer, but I did grow up wanting to be a CEO and build a beauty brand myself. And so for me, the journey and the kick in the butt really kind of expedited when he reached out. And I had this moment of, wow, if I don't do this, this guy is. And that's not what I want young women to see in the world. So that's what kickstarted me to get started in it. The process has been the most difficult thing I've gone through in my entire life. I'm 33. So, I'm learning as I go, but raising money has been probably the most testing journey of my life.
And why would you say that in terms of like, I think that I can only imagine how critical the journey was, but like, why do you say it really tested you in terms of investors?
I think it makes you doubt and then find confidence in every way of who you are as a person. You're getting rejected more than you're hearing yes, and you're like confused by it because you're, and it's very hard to not like compare and look at other people and say they were able to raise it and why not me. And then there's the valuation conversation, like why was that valued higher, and all of those things. And I was just learning also in real time myself for the first time. And so that I think was also really hard. Like I thought I had to go to business school to learn this stuff, and I just found myself Googling to learn like what a term sheet is, what is like, all the things. TAM. Oh my God, the acronym TAM is like in my nightmares slash dreams at this point. Total addressable market. So it's just like, yeah. So I think I am the living proof of the stat that only 2% of women, and much significantly less than that, and when it comes to women of color, are able to get venture funding. And I am part of that 2%, but it was the hardest journey I've ever gone through. And you would think after going through the seed that then you go through your Series A, that it gets easier. And you think like, oh well, if I get this money, or if I hire this person, or if we hit this sales benchmark, if we get into this retailer, then I'll be able to relax, then it'll get easier. And that is a false narrative. It just gets more challenging in new ways that are at higher stakes throughout the journey.
Knowing what you know now, and I know you're still raising money for Series A, but knowing what you know now, what would you have changed?
I always find that such an interesting question because like, would I change? Because I'm learning, right? I'm learning so much. I had this conversation the other day with one of our investors, actually last night, and I was like, I can't believe I can sit here and even talk about these things with confidence and understanding, and the strength that it has given me, and the it's just like I stand up taller and stronger because I'm like, I did that. I did that. And a lot of people would look at me and not think that. Like when I first started this journey and I was taking selfies as a beauty influencer, I felt ridiculous. And I remember like a lot of family, friends, and people, like I knew they were doubting me, but I knew what I was doing. And the people that mattered to me in my life knew what I was doing, and the intention behind it all. But so I think the short answer is I don't know if I would take it back, because those little moments in my life have created this person that I am today. And I like that person.
And thank you for, I think this is a question, and you're right. It's a question that everyone thinks about when you look in hindsight, like, were there things that you can change? And I think that it's so beautiful that you look at it a way that it's like, no, there's nothing you would change. There's no regret. And you're kind of forward thinking. And I think we're seeing that. I think you said in an interview a couple weeks ago that you said you always look you look at life with half glass full, right?
I try. It's not, I mean, I've had an ex-boyfriend tell me in my life, I need to be more of that. And maybe, you know what, maybe again, it's every piece of your life. It's not just your work life, it's your personal life too. It's like each of these chapters like existed for your like overall life book for a reason. And I've learned lessons like through the seed round. I learned not to trust a lot of people. And that helped me with the Series A of like, these are not my friends, these are potential business partners. And I'm such a relationship person, and I've built my career through my relationships. But I think you learn through the process of like, people exist in your life for a purpose and a reason, and they don't need to fill up all the cups in your life. And those are just little lessons I've learned by just going through it the hard way.
And how did talk about relationships? How did you find? I know you're surrounded by a very strong village of mentors and sponsors. How did you source those? How did you find those mentors and sponsors for you?
I mean, I think for me, every piece of my journey has been networking, like since day one. And you know why? Because we didn't have people to go to, to like look up to and see. So like, I wasn't handed an internship at L'Oreal. I wasn't given a job in New York City. None of those things were handed to me. And I had no connection. I was a girl from Texas, an Indian girl from Texas who wanted to live in Manhattan and work in the beauty industry. Like, who could I have called to get advice on that? So I had to network. I had to like force my way into rooms. And build my own seats at tables because they didn't exist. And so, I think it's one of those things that like I attribute my network today to like my grit and what you said at the very beginning, Shilpa, about hustle. Like I had it built in me. And I think I do get that from my mom. And my mom and I talk about this now. And she says to me, like, Deepica, like what you're doing now, I see so much of myself in what I have been able to do for my capacity and capabilities. Like I think her point being like, she's like, my English isn't great, but what I've been able to do with the amount that I'm able to articulate, I'm so proud of. And then to see that I have this daughter kind of take those same characteristics of hustle, grit, and agility, and then do it for what she's capable of. It just makes her really excited and me excited to that. Then hopefully when I have kids one day, that it just continues to build strong women that, hopefully make an impact in the world.
Wow, that is so rewarding. I think that just hearing you say that makes me so proud that your mom feels like you're living her dreams vicariously in a weird way. And for you
Yeah.
to be fulfilling that must feel like so rewarding for you.
But what's cool is it's not in a way that she's trying to live out her dreams through me. She didn't push me to do any of this. In fact, I pushed her to let me do this. And she was scared. I actually asked her, I was like, Mom, like when I quit my job to go be a YouTuber, what? Like, how did you not say hell no? You're shipping you off to India and you're getting married or something like that. And she just was like, Deepika, it's kind of crazy, but you're right. I did it. I just kind of was like, I'm going to let my daughter do her and have some faith in her. And if I don't have faith in her, how is she going to have faith in herself? And it's really cool. I get really like emotional in my thoughts when I think about it, because I know not everybody has family and parents like that. So it's just really cool to see where they've come from. I went to their house in India a few years ago before the pandemic. And it's just cool to see like what they've been able to do, and then the life they've given us here and what we're able to do. And again, like what we can do for our kids.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to being just first generation, second generation South Asians, or any minorities. It's like being able to see the grit and the hustle from our parents. I think we've almost been ingrained with the same adrenaline to want to do better and want to be something. And so, you do so many things. So you have a business that you're running as CEO. You're a creator of content through YouTube, Instagram, and all your social media platforms. You are speaking, doing inspirational talks and conversations like this. Like, how do you have time? Like, how do you manage your schedule day to day?
Well, you saw me 5 minutes before this. I'm literally triple tasking at all times. Like, I think that has been the hardest part, because when you think of a CEO, I had this moment last night while I was trying on, outfits for tonight's Diwali dinner, the White House Diwali dinner, my friends that's next week. And then I'm going to India for a work thing and I need an outfit for that. And it's like the amount of hours in my day that I have to think about what I look like is, I don't want to use the word frustrating, because it is, it is what it is. But do men ever have to think about that? Ever? I mean, it's astonishing to me. And you think about, like, it goes back to the idea of like why we see so many male CEOs out there. It's like, I'm not expected to just run my company, but I also am sharing my life with the world and doing talks and speaking engagements and have to take photos for red carpets and all of these things. And I'm not complaining. I don't want anyone to take that away as like a complaint. I just think that it makes it much more difficult, and it's forced me to build my company Live Tinted in a way where I have support at a very high level, even for the size of a business we are, because I have to be this person doing these things. And I know I'm the person that needs to be doing this. And so, hiring for the things that only I can do, the things that I can't do, is been a big lesson learned for me, because it's the only way I can do it all.
Yeah. And so how do you normally plan your day? So you talked about lots of variables that can happen. And we saw that earlier in the green room for folks that weren't with us. Obviously, you're literally multitasking. You're getting ready for an event. You had a hairstylist. You're going to be running to the event right after this. And so do you usually, like, what strategies do you use? Do you wake up in the morning and you like write a list of to-dos, or how do you kind of set your own boundaries for your day so that you have time to focus and relax? or does that not exist? That could be
It's
fair.
getting better. It's getting better. Like I generally have a schedule where every Wednesday is my filming day, which is today. And it's like, this is the one day of the week that we just bulk do content. I try to do all my speaking engagements on this day. I try to make it so there's no live tinted meetings or of any kind that exist. And like my meeting days are Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I usually am traveling on Mondays and Fridays. So like, that's like the general like framework of my week. It obviously is not exact in any form or fashion. And how am I ever not going to take a meeting for Live Tinted every single day in some capacity? I mean, and it's always on my brain or my mind. And I think that's the most difficult part, because being a content creator is a full-time job. And to do it well, you need to be engaged and be present and be there. And I think that's why you're seeing that, like, my YouTube videos aren't as often and all these other things, because it's just a new chapter of my life, and I'm evolving, and I still want to take people along the journey. I love doing that. But just in a new way that makes sense for life today.
Yeah. And I think that we know that calendars evolve and we know that our strategies evolve, but I think that's something that we all struggle with, even at work, at Google, when you have your meetings, and how do you flex all your meetings, and how do you have time to actually focus, and then have time to balance, if there is a balance, right? If there is a balance between personal and work life, or how do you merge them together so you feel like nothing's really a task or a sacrifice? So kind of, it's good to hear kind of how you map out your days of the week, and categorize it, because I think that gives it hopefully some strategy or some focus for you. And we can probably
I live by my Google Calendar. Like it is like, even my personal life stuff I put on there. Every piece of my life, every window goes on there, because I will go crazy without it.
So now we all know how to get you, is get on your calendar, and then you will be there.
By the way, please don't be that person who just puts it on my calendar because you found out my email. And then I'm like, wait, when did this thing get added? And they're like, this is a random human being that did that. Like, that to me is wild. That
happened.
It is so many of these agencies these days that just put it on your calendar to say, hop on a call. And there's been times where I like ask my assistant, I'm like, what is this company? And they're like, it's fake. And I'm like, what? That's crazy.
That's hilarious. Well, that's good to know. Maybe that's a feature for calendars to figure out what's a scam invite or not. But thanks for sharing that. So we know now to not just throw you on as an anonymous person. So we talked about your purpose. We talked about your schedule. Are there any challenges, like, a little bit, you addressed it with investors and talking about how that really tested you, but, whether it's within Live Tinted, the company, or whether it's in your life journey, what would you say your biggest challenge is today? Or your biggest challenge was in life so far?
I think it is the thing that everyone goes through, balance, is that this idea of, especially when you are a creator and when you're on vacation, people want to see your vacations. And so it's one of those things that, like, turning off doesn't really exist. And so I'm just trying to find out what the word balance means for me. And it doesn't need to be a traditional form of balance, right? Like, I don't want a 9-to-5. I mean, if I wanted a 9-to-5, I'm not a human that functions with sitting on Excel in a cube. That's just not what I thrive on. However, I also really respect and love people who do enjoy that, because they want that separation in their life. They're like, this is my job, and then I have a life I love. And I actually think, like, in recent years, I've applaud people who do that, because I think it's not in my blood to do it. And I think they have beautiful families and lives because of it. So I don't think I'll ever have that traditional balance. But for me, I like that it keeps life interesting. Like, I quote unquote am sitting here complaining about the chaos, but I'm also built for the chaos. And so I think for me, just figuring out, what does a balanced life look like?
And I think for many of us, even at Google, I think we might think similarly with, some of the chaos is good, and and that's actually adrenaline to keep you going, right? It's almost like keeps life exciting every day. And I think at the moment where you feel like it's no longer exciting to you, I think that might be the precedence of when you're like, maybe I need to slow down, or maybe I'm a little burnt out, or maybe I need to, like, take a pause. I do see that there's a question from the audience, and I want to encourage people. There's a lot of people watching live right now. So if you do have any questions for Deepica, please add it to the chat. If we want to queue up the first question, we're happy to take it. Awesome. So Jennifer is asking, is there a book you've read along your journey that has been very helpful? It does not need to be business related.
I mean, so many. I'm trying to think of the one that's the most interesting to share. Well, I mean, this is just the most recent one I've read. I wouldn't say it's like more helpful than the others, but this one's the most recent that really clicked with me. And I thought, again, going back to vulnerability and men being more vulnerable in the world. Andy Dunn wrote a book called Burn Rate. And what I loved, he's the founder of Bonobos, sold it to Walmart, I believe. And what I loved is his whole conversation was about mental health. And did you interview him?
No, we have. I don't know if he's come to Google yet, but he might
Okay.
have.
Okay. I what I loved about it is, as a CEO and a leader and a business person, you're supposed to have it all together. And I just love when people break it down and are human and say, I actually didn't have it together. But he also speaks from the fact that he had a privilege, and he's now sold his company for multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. And he can now feel confident to come out and talk about these things, which is what I want to be, is somebody who talks about it during my journey and not once I've made it. Just because, again, I think it really helps other people have less fear in going forward and doing it themselves.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We have another audience question. Richa is asking, if not for social media, a good question, how different do you think your brand or life would be?
Well, I think it's a great question. The path would have been different. The result would have been the same. Because I think about this all the time, is like, I wanted to build this beauty brand since I was 16 years old. So I was going to build this beauty brand. I worked at L'Oreal, I worked at Birchbox, and then I was going to go to business school and then start this beauty brand. The path changed because of social media. And I decided, instead of business school, I built an audience around myself and then the brand. But I think I'm confident that I would have still found a way to make this happen.
Wow. I think it's incredible that you had such clarity in terms of what you wanted to do at a young age. And I think that's really a gift. And hopefully, this is inspiring others to kind of really think about what that purpose is for them and what drives them day to day. Yeah. I did want to switch gears quickly to, I wanted to switch gears really quickly to a few rapid round questions, and then we're going to take some more audience questions as well. So I thought this would be fun to do with you. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and you can tell me your responses to it. It can be short. So okay. If not Live Tinted, if that wasn't your brand of choice, what would your favorite beauty brand be?
I think top of my head is, I love Tatcha skincare, because what their percentage of sales go to an organization called Room to Read, which helps underprivileged people get educated around the world, young girls. So I've met the founder, and she's become another sort of mentor, guide my life. And I just think she is a strong, badass woman. And that, I think I'm inspired by that. And then I just love her products. Her cleansing oil is great.
I have to try it. I haven't tried it yet. But I do have the Live Tinted products all here. And I'm an under circle person. So I've used your hack. So what is your go-to pump me up song? So those days where you come home and you're like, just got rejected from something, or you just are not feeling great. What's that pump me up song for you?
Okay, so the first one that comes to mind is, before I ever did the Today Show for the first time, I was back, and this was when I had the viral video happen. They asked me to come on. That email from the Today Show is the reason I quit my job, and I went for it. And I remember I was listening to Lose Yourself, Eminem, backstage. My dad was sitting next to Kid Rock, and it was this like surreal like scene in front of me. And I was listening to this, and I was like, you get one shot, one opportunity to get everything you ever wanted. And it like pumped me up. These days I am a Swiftie, and it calms me. It soothes my soul. And I don't know why. I think it makes me feel like a little kid. I love this.
I love that. I think for me, it's always like Mariah Carey. I think she's so classic to me. But yeah. I love that Eminem was the go-to jam. If you had a craving, like what's your like indulgent craving where you're like, I know you're working out a lot. We see your videos that you're posting. And so what's that one craving you're like, I probably shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it?
Well, red wine, it has been like my obsession for years and through the pandemic. And it's like, just the thing. I'm staring at a bottle that I've been waiting to open once we close our Series A right now. But I've actually stopped drinking. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll have a glass here and there, but like it used to be like part of my identity. And I feel like that is no longer me. Like I loved going on like to Napa and stuff. So I would have said that as my thing, red wine. But now I guess I would say I love everything truffle, like truffle pasta, truffle fries, all the things.
Oh my God, we're like the same person. I love all things truffle and I love all things potato. So like that's also something that I would say. But you know what? J-Lo doesn't drink either. So I think we're probably I think you see significant improvements. I think when you change the way your routine is and when you take things in and out of your diet, I think you see differences in your own beauty routine. And you probably know it better than I do. So
it's a game-changing difference. And the cool part is it's cool to not drink now. So you know, it's interesting. Like I order sparkling water or mocktails when I go out with people, and it helps you also discover some more confidence in who you are as like a sober human. It's interesting.
Yeah. So go-to product, concealer or mascara?
Oh, concealer. Of course, concealer. Duh.
Dark ask because I know
girl.
I know a lot of people sometimes don't want to leave home with that mascara on, so we thought we'd ask you that. Do you prefer a night in or a night out?
100% night in, which by the way, pre-pandemic, I was the most extroverted person. I thrived on being out with people. Like that made me feel more calm when I was out with people. I feel like I'm a different human now. And I think part of it is I'm in my 30s now and I'm exhausted from building my company and all those things. But then I also think the pandemic just made me discover like I have to recharge by being alone. And I love a good staying in night. It's the best.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I feel like it's pivoted a lot of society. Like I think even for me, I think staying in is more like lethargic. It's like more exciting and like more like recovering and rejuvenating than it is to go out sometimes. And I think there's a meme going around viral right now that's saying, "Can social media go away for a year again because people need to slow down?"
Yep.
So I think society is doing that. So do you prefer Bollywood or top 40s?
Oh, and so when you asked me my go-to song, I was gonna say just listening to like Spotify, like Bollywood hits, like when I was getting ready right now. I love listening to like I just love like like romantic Bollywood movies songs. It's just soothing and it just feels a little like home and it feels a little bit like just zen.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing. And going back to the South Asian thing, that we have this platform where we have multiple genres of music we can pick from, and we can have the Bollywood jams and we can have the English jams. And I think that really merges our culture together and makes us who we are.
Same. I love that.
So on the theme of beauty, Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella?
Oh man. I think growing up, I watched Beauty and the Beast way more. I'm so used to everyone saying Aladdin because we all wanted to be Jasmine growing up. So it caught me off guard when you said that. And so, yeah, Beauty and the Beast. I love Belle.
Yeah. Initially I was thinking Aladdin, but then I think Cinderella more has the story of she was understated and then she became someone glamorous. And so I think they both had very different journeys as beautiful princesses.
True. I just love that Jasmine was like, I'm not a prize to be won. Like I'm out here, just you don't own me. I love that.
Okay. So noted, Aladdin would be your go-to. If not Aladdin, then maybe Beauty and the Beast. Got it. And then what's something you won't leave home without? And it can't be your phone. You can't say your phone.
I know. That was my first thought. And I was like, okay, that's obviously not a good answer. Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked. I always have some sort of Live Tinted product in my bag, like our new brilliant gloss that is in a trio limited edition right now at Ulta.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So now everyone, call to action. Go buy your new gloss.
Yes, yes, yes. Please, please. I would love Google. Google, we need all the people at Google. Please go support a small business. That's the only way I'm going to make these investors happy. Please.
Yes, yes. Please go out there. I think it's livetinted.com, right? And make your purchase. And Ulta is also around the globe, around the US wide, right? It's not global yet.
Yeah, it's around the US, but livetinted.com ships international.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. So going back to the audience, I see that there's another question. So if we can queue it up. Is it Margot? I think it's Margot. Do you have any advice on how to be confident and have self-trust as a woman in business?
Great question. Because, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like my confidence came to me just through age and life experience. Like it's very, it's just through like discovering who you are as a person. So I would just say to anyone who's like young out there that potentially works at Google or listening to this, that like the self-work piece is so real. Like prioritizing therapy, prioritizing yourself, having discussions with yourself, journaling and talking to yourself. Like I really feel like I love who I am as a person. And I really can't say I would have thought that 5 years ago from today, right? And I think a lot of it has to come down to like my therapy discussions. And I just really want to normalize that as being something. I hope Google offers some sort of something to employees for therapy, because it just is so, so important. We as a small business do to our employees, just because it makes everyone better, everything better. You're a better employee, better human for the world.
And so I couldn't agree more. And Google does offer therapy. And we started doing this thing with focus time on our calendar so that you can actually block out time on your calendar to focus, whatever that means for you, or like if it's a meditation or mindfulness activities. But talking about therapy, and there's also stigma around that, at what point in your life, I think you said around 25 is when you actually started therapy, but like, how did you know at that point you're like, this could be a good tool for me, or this would be a good resource for me?
I was just going through a really hard time. It was like during the depression, anxiety, breakup. Who am I as a person? Switching jobs. It was all the things at once. It was kind of like all the things had to go to realize. But that's why I just want to encourage people to do it sooner.
All right. Well, thank you. Next audience question. Do you plan to bring Live Tinted to India? What is your take on American Indian beauty influencers and their footprint in India, and vice versa? And I smile because I think that's one of the things you said you're gonna work till you can do, which is get to India.
That's right. Yes, that is the number one dream goal of mine. It's just not, if I hear it every day on social media, and it like crushes my soul, because it's like there's so much logistics, planning, and time and resources you have to do to be able to do it. You could just turn it on, but it's not setting it up for success. And so for me, like, this is the point of this brand, is to like make that huge impact at something that's so important to me. So yes, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I Indian American beauty influencers, I just love that it's not just me. I love that there's so many of us. And now, like, whenever I get campaign opportunities, I always suggest other people, because we need more opportunity and other people to be out here doing the damn thing.
Yeah, I think that's the collective energy, and we're seeing that forces come along, Deepica, and you're one of them, and you're uniting people together. So hopefully we can help you get to India, and you can be in India so that
Please.
people can consume your brand. I think that'll be just such an amazing milestone. I know we have a couple minutes left. I think there was another audience question. Aparna is asking, how do you bounce back from a tough phase or situation? What is the best quote of all time, or what do you believe in?
Oof, I don't know if I can think of that on the top of my head, but I will say in general, like, how do you bounce back from a tough phase or situation? Well, I like definitely go through it. And I think people who just pretend like they wake up and like, I saw this like Rihanna thing, like I pretend, it went viral. It's like, what do you do when you don't feel like doing anything? And she's like, I pretend, I fake it. Why not? For sure, there is an element to that, for sure. But I also would have filled in that blank saying, I give myself the day. I realize I'm human, and, sometimes I do have to suck it up and just smile in that moment. But then I like make sure that night I allow myself to heal and just feel the feels, because I think that's important too.
Feel the feels and processing it. I think you said it so well. Is there a quote?
Okay, and I think the life general quote that I have been living by is like the whole like oxygen mask thing. Like, you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. And so putting yourself first is not selfish. It's actually selfless for everyone around you. So I think for a lot of times, again, for women of color, like hearing that helps us do these things, because we are programmed to give and be nurturing people.
Yeah, lovely. And, I know we're at time, but we wanted to ask, what's next for you as an individual, as a founder, and what's next for Live Tinted? What does that journey look like for you moving forward?
Well, I just moved back to Los Angeles after a few years back in Texas. And so I'm really excited about it. Like, the team is here. It's so nice to be with them in an office and just, just be creative together. And we're building and scaling. Like I have new investors in place because of the Series A. And like, it just means a whole new chapter of the business where we will have to zoom in on building the company. And that means more products from us. That means I'm freaking dying to launch our concealer and things like that. And like, we're just in scale mode. So you'll see a lot more from us, but hopefully still the same brand ethos that people fell in love with and love and support. And then along the way, I want to build out some kind of a personal life, whatever that means. I'm still figuring it out.
Well, we are all rooting for you. And thank you so much for your time with Talks at Google and with us today. You are remarkable. You're doing some amazing things. So thank you for inspiring us and so many people around the world. So thank you, Deepica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.